Record to. All right. So thank you and welcome all of you to event number 3, substance misuse education, that is focusing on external assets and refusal skills. This is going to complete your requirement for event number 3. Again, please make sure that you put your full name, school, and grade in the chat to gain attendance. I really am very grateful for you all being here. I know that this is an incredibly busy time for a lot of you, and many of you have finals and such this week before the holiday break. So I invite you to be present, to be engaged. We are going to have interaction during this event, and that is also how you are going to be able to gain attendance, and just be here for the hour that it's going to take. So did anybody report in on the squirrel scale at all? Oh, no one's interested. Well, I'm at a 4 right now, I think. All right, awesome. So tonight we are going to be talking about not only substance misuse and the impact on your developing brain, but we're also going to be talking about some solutions, those external assets that are outside of yourself that you talked about during event number 2, and also refusal skills, how to be able to answer to your values in the moment. Not necessarily saying no, but how are you answering to your values in the moment? All right, so this is our agenda for the evening. Again, if you have any questions at all throughout this event, please go ahead and put them in the chat. Devin will receive them and she will either respond to you or we will make sure that that question is answered. And as always, if you would like to stay on after the event, if you have a question, Devin and I will stay on to the end. My name is Natalie. I am the programs coordinator at the Collaborative. I am also a person living in long-term recovery from a substance misuse disorder, which means I have lived experience in recovery. And I am also a recovery coach in the state of Vermont, which means that I am able to listen attentively and help people get the resources and help that they need when they are entering into recovery. So just take a look at this. This is what we are going to be doing for the evening. And just thank you for being here. So let's get to it. All right, so as always, this is something that the Collaborative always talks about whenever we're doing presentations, is making sure that we are using human-centered language. Now, the issue of substance misuse is one that is filled with anxiety and addiction and a lot of stigma and guilt. And so what we want to do is to make sure we create an environment that is safe for people to be who they are. And so we don't use words like addict or junkie when we are talking about people who are struggling with addiction. Instead, we use terms like substance misuse. And it's really to make sure that we're putting the human being at the center of all of this. And a lot of things have happened during COVID, and a lot of negative things, but some positive things certainly. But one of the things that has been impacted drastically is that the rise of substance misuse during COVID it increased dramatically. And I'm sure you can think of why. So we want to make sure that as we are learning about this, that we are being as compassionate as possible. And so you all heard from someone like Benjamin Lerner, who is a person living in long-term recovery from a substance misuse disorder, but he refers to himself as an addict or a junkie. So those individuals who are in that community, and if any of you attended a recovery panel earlier this year or last year, you know that people in recovery are able to refer to themselves however they would like to, right? Because that is their journey. But we just want to make sure that we are a supportive community and that we are using language that is inclusive and human-centered, because words are really important. What we say and how we talk about ourselves and how we talk about others is really important. Okay, so what is addiction? What is substance use disorder? What is substance misuse disorder? Now, the word addiction comes from the Latin word enslaved to, powerlessness over. It is a brain disorder. It is actually in the DSM-5 as a disease. It is progressive, which means that it only gets worse over time. And it actually changes the entire structure of your brain and function. It can be repaired, however, but when we think about addiction, we think about substances immediately, right? Alcohol, nicotine, opioids, marijuana, cannabis, right? But there are so many things out there that we can get addicted to, because addiction truly is repeated behavior as a result of taking a substance or engaging in an activity and having repeated negative results over and over. It's actually the definition of insanity. And so what happens to your brain is that your brain gets tricked into thinking that you need this substance or you need this thing. You need more money, you need more clothes, you need more stuff, you need a better car. You're in a relationship that is toxic and not good for you, yet you keep on going back to that person, right? Despite negative consequences. That can be an addiction. And so what happens is it begins as a choice. Addiction and substance use begins as a choice. You choose to pick up, you choose to put that cigarette in your mouth, you choose to drink that alcohol. But what can happen eventually is that it develops into a habit, something that you're doing every 2 or 3 days, something that you begin to do every day, something that you do in secret, and then it ultimately becomes an addiction. And so this can be in anything that negatively impacts your life and the relationships that you have in your life. So as you can see on this graphic, there's a lot of things that you can become addicted to, even your own thoughts, your own negative patterns of thinking. You can get stuck in that spiral and become stuck in that behavior of always thinking negatively. And so there is hope, right? Recovery is possible. And it's not just recovery from substance use disorders, but it can also be recovery from anything that your body can get addicted to, anything that your brain can get addicted to, where your brain thinks, whoa, I need this, I need this. And addiction, substance use disorder, is not a moral issue. It is not an issue of whether or not people are good or bad if they use substances, or whether or not even the substance is good or bad. It's not a moral issue. It's a health issue, and it's a mental health issue. And so we want to make sure that we're giving you the skills necessary and the knowledge necessary to be able to make the best decisions for yourself possible. Okay, so what is a drug? What is a drug? Now, I've included in this presentation a lot of links. So if you want to go back to the RTU website and take a look at it, you can. Caring Adults, there's a lot of resources in here for you to take a look at. But this website will direct you to any substance of misuse. And so it will give you what is in it, what it does, how it impacts you. You see that caffeine is on there as well. Caffeine is the most widely distributed substance in the United States, but it is legal, and it is not a substance of complete and total abuse like heroin, but it is a substance that changes your brain chemistry. So just taking a look, you can take a look at that later if you would like. So drugs or substance of misuse, we're referring to anything that is not food or water, not something that you take that is meant to have a mood altering effect, right? So food and water, right? Food can certainly fall under that category. You have a delicious piece of cake, right? And you feel really like excited about it. In that moment, you're like, oh, this is so good, right? That can be one thing, but you're not going to eat cake to the point where you're getting high, right? So substance of misuse, drugs, we're talking about substances where the desired effect is to get high. So I would like for you to send in the chat, what are some phrases that you know for getting high? What are some slang words that you know for getting high? I know the ones that I know from when I was a kid and currently, but what are some current, and we're not going to share your name. So what are some current slang for getting high? Devin, go ahead.
You've got baked.
What else? More. Remember, interaction is part of the way you're going to obtain credit as well. So we're going to make sure that we see your name in that chat.
stoned,
Mhm.
gone,
What else?
buzzed,
Ooh, the echo.
blasted, bombed,
All right.
lit, and dazed.
Nice. All right. So anything that's not nourishing, anything that you are putting into your body where the desired effect is to change the state of your being, right? And substances of misuse certainly do that. And not only does it change the state of your being, it changes your behavior and makes you perhaps act in ways that you would not have acted in otherwise. And so, can prescription drugs be misused? Can over-the-counter drugs be misused? And the answer is absolutely, because the desired effect is to be other than what is written on the label, right? And so anything like this can be misused and can start to alter your brain and body and emotional functioning. All right, so taking a look at the interactive drug wheel, just for your own sort of knowledge, they divide these substances into 7 different categories, and they are grouped within that by whether or not they are medicinal or recreational, the effect on the body. So whether or not it slows down your heart rate, increases your heart rate, increases your respiratory rate, or decreases it, whether or not it makes you feel lethargic or tired, or whether or not it makes you feel energetic. The source of the substance, whether or not it comes from a plant or whether or not it is synthetically made, and legal status, whether or not it is legal, illegal, decriminalized, because there's a difference, or the risk status of dangerous and safe. And as you can see, and if you go to this website, you actually can like click on all of these different categories and see what actually happens to your brain, your body when they are used. But you can see opioids, depressants, stimulants, empathogens, dissociatives, and cannabinoids, all drugs and substances of use and misuse that can drastically alter the functioning of the adolescent and developing brain. Now, these drugs are neither good nor bad. The people who use them or misuse them are neither good nor bad. But what we want to talk to you about is the health risks associated when you drink alcohol. What happens to your body? What happens to your brain? If you smoke marijuana, what is going to happen to your body and your brain? If you vape, nicotine or anything else, right? What is actually happening to your lungs as that is entering your body? And so it's really important to understand that. But at the same time, it's also really important to understand the reasons why you might want to start using a substance. And so we're going to do a little bit of an investigation into some reasons why, but then also some solutions. So, all right. So just a little bit about your brain. Now, this is not like crazy exciting stuff, but it's really important for you to understand. Your brain is you. Everything that you do, everything that you are, your hopes, your dreams, your ambitions, your memories. And your brain develops from the back to the front. So the back of your brain is like that reptilian part of your brain. It's like a very like basic functioning, food, water, getting to places on time, just being a human being. And your brain develops from the back to the front. So by the time your prefrontal cortex is developed, you're at 25, 26. Your brain is not fully developed until you're 25 or 26. And that prefrontal cortex is what is in charge of your decision-making, your impulse control, your ability to remain calm in the moment when someone is really hacking you off. That is all in that prefrontal cortex. And so if that's not fully developed and you're introducing substances to that, alcohol, marijuana, opioids, there's no telling what could happen to your brain. And so what we want to do is give you the information possible so that you can protect your brain and your body and your person as long as possible. All right. Sorry. All right. So during the ages of 13 to 25, it is what is called the thinning and pruning section of your brain development. And that is when you are losing the things that you don't use, and you are able to really hone in on what it is that makes you happy, what brings you joy, and you're able to cultivate those skills. And so what gets stronger, what you repeat, what you do every day, that is what is going to be imprinted on that brain, and what you don't use doesn't. And like I said, that prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain that is not fully developed yet, that is the part of your brain that's in charge of really important stuff when you're a young person. And if you engage with using substances casually, right, there's no telling what could happen. There's no telling what could happen. And so we just want you to hold off for as long as you possibly can, right? To protect your brain and keep you healthy. Okay, so here we're just gonna watch a quick video on teen brain development and why it's so important for you to really make sure that you are protecting your brain at all costs.
As teens, people are always telling us we can't do. Do you ever wonder why that is? Why can't I stay up late? What could happen if I just play for 15 more minutes? Who cares if I smoke a joint every now and then? Let's face it, adults may mean well, but they can't really explain why they won't let us do this stuff. The thing is, there's actually a really cool explanation, and it has to do with our brains. From the outside, the brain of a newborn looks just like a smaller version of an adult brain, but there's a big difference. There's a ton of stuff that still needs to be programmed into a young person's brain. That's where our life experiences come in. How we interact with what's around us shapes our brains until we're in our mid-20s. We can't feel our brains changing, but they are super busy building circuits and programming. So how does this happen? Every little thing that happens to us can change our brain in huge ways. At short distances, our experiences can make or break connections between brain cells. By guiding the creation of circuits, experiences shape our perceptions, memories, and everything that makes us unique. But they also affect our brain across longer distances. This involves the construction of thick bundles of fibers that connect different brain regions. By creating this complex network, experiences help increase the brain's bandwidth, allowing it to work better and better. You've got to keep in mind, these short and long range connections are influenced by everything we do and everything that happens to us. But this is awesome news. It means we are the programmers of our brains. Every decision, good or bad, influences how our brain develops. Let's talk about taking drugs. For example, pretend this is the keyboard you are using to program your brain. Using drugs just for fun or to get high would be like scrambling the letters on the keyboard. Now, if you scramble the letters on the keyboard after the program is written, that can lead to temporary errors or make it hard for the program to run for a while. But if you scramble the letters while the program is being written, the program can incorporate catastrophic, long-lasting glitches. This is why teens are better off without drugs. We are in the middle of coding our brains, and drugs can cause real problems that can last a long time. And yet, drugs are just one of the many possible ways of scrambling our keyboards. For example, not enough sleep, lack of exercise, or eating too much junk food can also harm our brain programs. So yeah, I get it. It's annoying to be told what we can and can't do, but I would rather focus on my ability to shape my brain through smarter decisions. It turns out we have far more control than we thought. We can use this information to choose our own paths and give ourselves the best possible futures.
Okay, so Devin's going to put up a little poll, and I would like to know what substance you think is the most misused substance by youth in Bennington County. What substance do you think is the most misused in Bennington County? Oof, almost there. Okay, we're going to end the poll in a few seconds. All right. And it looks like nicotine won out. I'm going to share the results for a second. It's actually alcohol. It's actually alcohol is the substance of most misuse, and especially there was a huge uptick during the COVID pandemic, which continues. But yeah, alcohol is the substance of the most misuse. And so, just a last thing. Not only do substances of misuse impact your brain, right? But they also impact your life and your hope and your level of hope and your ability to engage with other people. And so there's many reasons why people start using substances. Sometimes it's just to try it, right? Or you're at a party and you're like, why not? I mean, whatever, no big deal, right? Or if you are someone who is in deep chronic depression or pain or anxiety and you try and numb that with a substance, right? Or boredom. Many of you answered on your registration survey that boredom was one of the reasons that youth use in our community. And so there's many reasons why. And so what I want to tell you is that who you are, that why of who you are, is so much more important than any substance is ever going to give back to you, because it won't give back to you. It will only take. And literally, when substances are leaving your body, it is like an illness or toxins are leaving your body and you're sick and you don't feel good. And so, yes, there are some, like in America, we celebrate and we have celebrations, right? And many of those celebrations, there's always alcohol there, right? And so it is a part of our culture. Substances are a part of our culture and a celebrated part of our culture. But what I'm asking you to consider is to celebrate yourself first without that stuff, at least until your brain and body fully develop. And so not only do substances affect your brain and body and your hopes and dreams, but your mental health as well. So if you're someone who struggles with depression or anxiety, no substance is going to make that better unless it is medically directed by a physician that you are working closely with. Nothing is going to make it better if you are trying to mask the pain and not deal with the underlying condition. And so not only can these things, alcohol, even marijuana, right? Nicotine as well. It changes our brain functioning. It tricks us into thinking that we need it when we don't. It hijacks that dopamine pleasure center. And it makes us act in ways that we wouldn't act otherwise. So what actually happens to your brain and body? Just a quick little video. And then we're going to go on to refusal skills. And so in this video, they actually say, I think that 20 million people grapple with addiction. That number's up to 40 million now.
Say the word addiction, and drugs such as alcohol, heroin, and cocaine often come to mind. But other substances like nicotine, marijuana, and prescription pain medications can also be addictive. So can certain activities such as gambling and sex. Whatever the case, addiction involves craving and a loss of control, with the substance use or activity continuing even if it causes harm. This can include problems with relationships, jobs, school, money, or your health. Addiction is not due to weakness or a lack of willpower. Instead, it's a chronic disease involving changes in the brain. There, billions of nerve cells or neurons communicate through a series of signals and chemical messengers. When messages leave one neuron, they attach to a receptor on the receiving one, like a key fitting into a lock. In addiction, this communication process is disrupted. Large amounts of a brain chemical called dopamine are released, overwhelming receptors and resulting in the high that people experience. To keep that feeling going, they take the drug or engage in the behavior again and again. Eventually, the brain changes and adapts, driving them to seek out more just to get the same feeling. That's called tolerance. Stop Stopping a substance can cause withdrawal symptoms such as nausea, tremors, depression, or severe anxiety. Taking too much of a substance or a combination of substances can result in an overdose and serious illness, or even death. Young people are especially vulnerable to addiction. The impulse control center of their brains, known as the prefrontal cortex, isn't fully developed, making them more prone to risky behavior. And using substances can cause lasting harm to their developing brains. If you think your child might be experimenting with substances, talk to them about it. Parents can help by taking a strong stand against substance use and teaching their kids healthier ways to deal with life's stresses. Like any other disease, such as diabetes or asthma, addiction can be successfully treated. So if you or someone you know has a problem with addiction, talk to your doctor, a mental health professional, or an addiction specialist. Getting help may save a life.
So, second poll. I want to know what substance of misuse or a issue of misuse changes brain functioning. Multiple choice. You can choose any of them. Want to hear from you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Either toxic, abusive relationships or friendships, alcohol, nicotine, gambling or excessive shopping, or cannabis, marijuana. What substances change your brain or issues of misuse? What things that you can be addicted to? All right, we're going to end the poll in a second. Okay. Pretty much right down the middle, except for alcohol was a little bit higher. But yes, you are correct that all of those things can alter your brain and your ability to use executive functioning. Now, sometimes that happens in a very dramatic way, and sometimes that happens in a very sneaky way so that you don't even notice it happening. And so addiction, substance misuse can come on very quickly. It can also come on very slowly, so much so that you don't even know that it's happening until your relationships have changed, or you're getting into trouble at school, or you are caught vaping repeatedly at school, or you are in a relationship that all of your friends are telling you is just not good for you, and you know deep down that it isn't, but you still go back to that person. Those are all ways in which our brain can experience trauma, frankly, experience trauma. Now, you can heal, you can change, you can grow, you can set boundaries, and you can develop healthy ways to deal with life's pressures.
Say the word addiction and drug.
And so, why prevention? Why this program? Now, I know it is in many ways because of the past, right? And that is by design. We want to incentivize the healthy choice for you and to get you outside. But we all have a stake in this. Substance misuse, like I said, went up drastically during COVID across the country because people were alone and their support networks were taken away from them. And so a lot of people suffered. A lot of young people suffered. The Surgeon General just came out with a report last Monday that youth mental health is drastically at being challenged right now, decline. And we need to address that. And we need to help our youth understand that they're enough without substances. And so what we do at the collaborative is we are a substance misuse prevention nonprofit, which means that we want to prevent problems from happening before they do, not just in substance misuse, but in all areas, right? And so if we think about healthcare like a river, and you are going to canoe, kayak, float down the river, right? We want to give you all of the equipment possible to navigate that river safely. because you can not know what is going to happen in your life. You can know some things, but there are some things that are going to come up where you are going to have to dig deep and find things within yourself, strength within yourself that you didn't even know existed. And we want to help you make that easier. And so prevention is giving you those tools, right? The external assets, those are the things that are outside of yourself, the people in your life, the clubs that you belong to. If you belong to a synagogue or a church or another spiritual community, your school, teachers, mentors, those things outside of self that help you navigate life. So that's like the boat, the life jacket, the friends that are going to be with you who are supportive and hopefully bringing you up instead of bringing you down, the people on the river with you, right? And so that's what we're focusing on today. But those internal assets, the stuff that's within you, we're going to focus on that in February. And that's your drive to keep on going, your grit, your tenacity, your ability to make a healthy choice for yourself in the moment because you believe that your life has worth. Now, we want to arm you with all that stuff when you're at the beginning of the river, okay? So that you don't hit a rapid and you don't know what to do. And so what happens a lot of times, and what happened with me and in my own life, is that I did not have the coping skills necessary to be able to handle life. I really didn't. I was not provided them when I was a young person. And so when I got to the point where my life got to be really, really unmanageable, I used substances to be able to numb that pain. And so what ends up happening is that when you enter recovery, you have to get out of the river. You have to get out of the river and learn all of the things, all of the coping skills, all of the coping mechanisms necessary to be able to handle life. Now, recovery is amazing. And if you have listened to a person who's living in long-term recovery or heard a story, it's absolutely inspiring, right? But my job is to hopefully prevent you from never having to be in recovery, to be able to navigate life no matter how hard it gets by doing the hard work that it takes and not choosing to numb the pain or just do it just because there could be dire consequences, drastic consequences. And you don't know what could happen. And so we just want to be able to make you have a life that is healthy and where you are able to make healthy decisions for yourself. So moving on, external assets. Quickly about this, I want you to chat. What are some supports, and we're not going to share your names, but what are some supports that you have in your life, external supports that help you make healthy decisions? Who is there for you? Is it a friend? Is it a mentor? What are the ways in which you are supported? Would love to hear that. So chat those away right now, please. And in the meantime, just a note that it's super, super important that you have someone in your life that you can talk to. And hopefully that is the caring adult in your home. But if that is not, then it's really important to be able to talk to somebody that you trust unconditionally. That can be a teacher, that can be a dance instructor, that can be a coach, anybody that is going to help guide you and make those important decisions. Yeah, Devin.
So we have people saying,
Yourself.
I mute myself.
Yeah.
We have people saying friends, best friends, parents, cousins, teammates, teachers, the outdoors. And then one person says, my family has always been pretty open with this stuff, and I know that I can trust them without being judged.
Oh, right on. I love to hear that there are families out there, and caring adults, if you're listening and you have these difficult conversations with your young people, thank you so much. It is so difficult, but it is so, so important to have those open lines of communication, because if you're in a home where you don't talk about things, then those things become shameful. right? Those things that we need to talk about, they become shameful. And so kudos to those caring adults out there and those scholars that are willing to have those conversations, because it's super important. And that leads us to the second one, empowerment. Do you feel empowered in your life? Do you feel like you have agency? Are you prepared for the day? Do you wake up and know that you're going to at least try to give it your all, or give it your some, right? Just give it a little bit. Do you show up? And the third one, which is so important in what we're going to talk about today, boundaries and expectations. Are you able to set boundaries? Are you able to say no? Because no is a full sentence. It's a complete sentence. Are you able to understand your values, what's important to you, and not act outside those values just because you want to be liked, or because you don't want to deal with someone's nonsense, or because it's just the easier thing to do? And how do you spend your time? Are you constantly on your phone? Are you constantly on social media, right? Social media gives you that instant dopamine rush. It gives you that instant flood of dopamine, but that doesn't last. And if any of you are on social media, you know that that sort of cycle can definitely become toxic if you're not careful, right? Social media is another thing that we can get addicted to. Absolutely, certainly. And so, do you procrastinate, or are you timely? And does the way you spend your time make you feel good? Does it bring you joy? Does the sports team that you are a part of bring you joy? Does being outdoors bring you joy? What is it that really sparks that inspiration in you? And are you surrounding yourself with people and things that bring you up instead of bring you down? And sometimes that's hard, because sometimes the people that bring us down are people that we have to have in our life, right? And so do you have the stuff to be able to distance yourself from that emotionally and still keep yourself emotionally safe? And so, any more?
No.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing those, guys. Okay. Refusal skills. Here we are. So, refusal skills are actually an identified component of being able to engage in healthy behaviors as a young person. Do you have the skills to be able to say no, or not right now, or maybe next time, or that's not for me? And so the first thing that you really need to consider is, what is important to you? What is really important to you? Do you want to be a writer? Are you an Olympic hopeful? Are you interested in like some obscure thing that like not many people do, but you're so passionate about it, right? Like, what's important to you? And what are the values that you hold dear? Honesty, right? So many of you, in response to the Benjamin Lerner event, where he talked a lot about his values, so many of you identified that being honest, that being a stand-up person, that showing up for your friends was super important to you. And so it's awesome that you want to do that for other people, but let's make sure that you're doing it for yourself as well. Do not compromise who you are for anybody. Don't compromise the person that you want to be for anybody. Your life has more worth than that. And at the end of all of this, at the end of your life, right, you want to be able to know that you did the absolute best, but you're the one that has to live with your decisions, not some person in 7th grade that's trying to pressure you into do something that you don't want to do. And so 5 refusal strategies, they break it down very simply. Say no in a firm voice. Sometimes that's hard, right? I really hate disappointing people. And so sometimes I will say yes to things that I absolutely do not want to do. And I'm sure that there are many of you out there who understand what I mean, right? And so how in that moment can I get out of it? Or can I gracefully say, I'm good? Suggesting alternatives, using body language that shows you mean business, right? Because if you're meek and timid and you're, kind of not sure of yourself, people might not take you seriously. And then always leave if necessary. And so here's something that's super important. If you are in a situation, always have an exit plan. Always, 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 always have an exit plan. Always have a way to leave, a ride home, or be able to text a family member or a caring adult, and have like a plan worked out with your people, right? So if you're in an uncomfortable situation and you need to get out of it, like text the like fencing emoji to your caring adult, and then they know, right? It's Mayday and they need to call you and, you know, make an excuse and you're out of there, right? Because one of the refusal skills is actually using an excuse. So if you take a look at this, this is just a helpful sort of list of things for people actually in recovery. But remember, people in recovery are just learning the skills necessary to be able to live life on life's terms that we are teaching you now. And so one of my favorites to get out of uncomfortable situations is to use humor, make fun of myself, or make fun of the situation, right? And so say no. During the 90s, there was a huge campaign, the DARE program. Many of your caring adults were probably part of the DARE program. And their slogan was just say no. Well, I've already identified that sometimes it's very difficult to just say no. And so that program actually didn't work for a lot of reasons, but it didn't work because it didn't offer any more skills other than just say no. Drugs are bad. People who did drugs were bad. People who sold drugs were bad. And so if you didn't say no, then you were bad too. Doesn't really work. It's not a moral issue. And so yes, the suggestion of just saying no and turning around and leaving is a great one, but it's really difficult if you are someone who struggles with wanting to be liked, wanting to feel included, wanting to feel belonged, because I know the last thing that I wanted to do when I was in middle and high school was say no to anybody because I was so desperate to be liked, right? And so that was an unanswered part of me where I needed to work on my own self-esteem. It wasn't a them issue, it was a me issue. Changing the subject, super helpful. Just like trying to navigate the discussion someplace else, right? Someone comes up to you and they're like, hey, you want to hit off this vape, right? Real right quick, no big deal, right? Just change the subject, right? Change it to something else. Turn the tables, putting it back on the other person. Certainly can be effective, but make sure that you are doing it in an appropriate way and not being antagonistic. State the reason, right? Like, no, I got a lacrosse game tomorrow. I'm good. I'm all good. Or if you need to use your mom or your caring adult as an excuse, or just state the facts. No, I don't want to put that in my body. I'm good. I'm good. I've got practice tomorrow. I'm all set. Ignore them, right? Ignoring people as a general rule, ghosting them, right? Not an effective communication style, but in a space where you need to keep yourself safe, ignoring them is completely, completely legitimate. And then also unity in numbers, surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded. If you go to a party and you know that people are going to be drinking and using drugs, but you still want to go because you have a fear of missing out, okay, set up safety plans for yourself that you are with a group of friends, you have a driver or a way to get there and back. You are with people who are like-minded and who are going to help support your decisions and who are probably, hopefully, going to be making the same decisions too, to be at the party or not, but that you are surrounded by people who share that same understanding and won't belittle you for not using, right? Who will celebrate the fact that you've made that choice. Don't go, just don't show up. Don't show up. If you know that there's going to be a situation where you are going to be feeling unsafe or that might cause anxiety, and this is not just a party, right? Like if you have to go anywhere or do anything that is really, really super anxiety inducing, unless it's required for school or whatever, and that's something different, right? Really think about it and think about whether or not going is going to be beneficial or not, right? Reject the behavior. It's not about you, it's about them. Anything that anybody ever does is about them. It's not about you. So when someone calls you a name or is cruel to you, it's about the hurt inside them. It is not about the hurt inside you. Hurt people hurt people. So when people are trying to get you to use, or when people are trying to get you to do things that you don't want to do, it's less about you than it is about them. And that took me a long, long time to learn. Walk away. Just walk away. Just, nah, I'm good. And then, as always, have a caring adult in your life that you can talk to, about this. And I hope that you have, in these open conversations that you're having, sort of a no judgment open forum, right? That you're able to discuss things openly. Because the more we talk about it, the less power it has. And so when you make this decision, if you make this decision for yourself, healthy decisions, which you hopefully do, don't backtrack. Don't go back on your word. Don't go back on what you've decided to do, because it just makes you look like your boundaries aren't serious. And then in the moment, in that critical moment where you are posed with making a choice, think about what you're grateful for. Think about what in your life brings you joy. Who brings you joy? Who wants to see you happy, healthy, and succeed? What in your life are you grateful for? Gratitude is hugely helpful, because if you can identify in the moment things that you are grateful for, you are less likely in that moment to make a decision that is unhealthy for you. And so on this slide, I have included some hacks for happiness. So that dopamine pleasure center that you get from doing drugs or eating a really great piece of cake, you can complete a task, celebrate a little win. Serotonin to help you sort of be calm, meditate, sunshine, running, exercise. Okay, so this is just a helpful little list for you. And notice that electronics and social media and posts and TikTok reels are not on there. It's not on there, because you're not getting anything back from that. And the stuff that you do get back from that is temporary. It's temporary. All right. So we were, and we,
Like 8 minutes.
yeah. So this video is included, and we'll skip it because we don't have, well, no, we'll watch a little bit of it. But Michael Phelps is the most decorated athlete of all time at the Olympics, 28 medals. And he also is an individual who struggled with a substance misuse disorder. And so we're just going to watch a little bit of this. And so the way that this comes into play with refusal skills is that Michael Phelps was able to get to a point in his life where he'd gotten in so much trouble, right, that he had to make a decision for himself. But ultimately what happened is he came back and he had the most outstanding Olympics he had ever had, because he made the decision to say, no more, that my life has more value than what these substances are giving me.
Competing at 5 Olympics, Michael Phelps won 23 gold medals, most ever. In the water, he was a spectacular force, but out of the pool, life was often more challenging. In 2014, he was arrested and charged with driving under the influence. For the second time in 10 years.
Be advised, last name Phelps, first name Michael.
That's a train wreck. I mean, it was just like a time bomb waiting to go off. I mean, I had no self-esteem, no self-worth.
Just when Phelps needed it most, an old friend, also a sports icon in Baltimore, intervened.
This is when we fight. This is when real character shows up. Don't shut down. Because if you shut down, we all lose.
I mean, for a moment, I thought it was going to be the end of my life. Literally. Just because it was like, yeah, it would probably just be better without me. People won't have to deal with the BS that I give them or the crap I put them through.
It was really sad to see. You picture somebody being at their lowest point. That's where Michael was. And that it's hard to see.
I didn't really leave my room, didn't eat, didn't really sleep. I just figured that it was the best thing to do was just to end my life.
Phelps fought back and sought the help he so desperately needed.
I think when you find your lowest point in your life, I think you're kind of open to a lot of things to try to change it and to try to get back on the right path. And I was just surrendering.
Phelps would spend 45 days here at the Meadows, a behavioral rehabilitation facility just outside Phoenix, where he was treated for anxiety and depression.
Michael had to take a step back before he actually went forward again to realize who he was out of the pool.
A rejuvenated Phelps would sparkle at the 2016 games. 5 more gold medals. Now he's a mental health warrior, imploring others to speak up and seek help when they need it. Competing at
So we'll stop there, just because for timing purposes. But one of the things that Michael Phelps has done is he has brought to light one of the biggest issues facing young people in our country, and that's the issue of mental health. And so what he ended up doing was dealing with those issues with substances. And so it took a lot for him to be able to come back. And so to be able to say, no, no more. And what we want to do as preventionists is say, no, not now, not now, maybe not ever, but especially not now. So what we want to do during the last 5 minutes is this. Here are 4 scenarios. I want you to choose one. Choose one that sort of speaks to you, or maybe that you're like, oh, this is interesting, and chat us what you would do. So number 1, you need a ride home from soccer, but your caring adult isn't answering the phone. A friend who only has their permit and really isn't that great a driver offers to drive you home. What do you do? Number 2, you're invited to a barn party. Everyone says it's going to be safe because the caring adults are taking the keys and no one can leave when they're intoxicated. First off, do you go? Second off, if you do go, what do you do if you are offered alcohol and or a substance? So number 3, you excel in math, but your teacher has you working in a group. There's a member of your group who just doesn't contribute and asks for you to do the work for them. What do you do? And number 4, you've been talking to someone that you really like and you don't want to tell them yet because you're just not ready. So you tell a friend and you confide in them. And that friend goes on and tells them and then expects you to think it's no big deal. What do you do? So would love to hear from you. I'm going to put on a little music and then we'll hear from you in like 2 minutes. All right, Devin, what we got?
So for number 1, we have had people say refuse to even get in a car with them.
Okay, so refuse to get in the car with the driver who just has the permit. This is a problem in this community sometimes. Yes.
Number 2, don't go to
Number-
the party at all.
Okay, just don't go.
Number 3, try to encourage your friends or encourage math. Number 4, break off the friendship. And then
Ooh.
we've got
There's some boundary setting going on here. Breaking off the friendship, having that difficult conversation. Yeah, Devin.
one person says I choose number 3 and I probably should tell them to do it themselves, but in all honesty, if it's no big deal, big load off my back, I'll do it. Even if it'll take me a while, I'll still tell the teacher. Another scenario was, for the first scenario was I call a different adult. Number 4 is getting rid of that toxic friendship. Number 1, just don't go with them and wait for an adult.
Nice. So these answers are really like, there's some clear boundary setting that's happening here. Like break off that toxic friendship. You know, don't encourage that friend to do their own homework. Although I've definitely been in the position of group work where you're like, oh my gosh, like really, I'm getting the same grade as this knucklehead. So I understand that person who responded with like, honestly, I would just do the work. But you need to make sure that you are not acting outside your values. Yeah, Devin.
You got one worst scenario. He says, I would offer the student some help with the work during flex block or study block. I would not allow the student to hold back the group, but I would want to help them.
Ooh, not allow, setting a boundary. So not allow that person to hold back the group so that your grade didn't suffer, but also encouraging them to do the right thing. I love it. I love it. This is really great. And so, yeah, Devin. Oh no, it's a funny one.
So number one just says, ask them if they are 16 to make them rethink and then process before telling them no.
Oh, so you're gonna like help your friend like make the right decision to, yeah, that's really great to like engage your friend, right? That's that turn it back on that person refusal skill. Ooh, so good. And so these things might seem like silly and trite, right? Being able to like whip off a quick refusal skill in the moment, but it is so important. Yeah, Devin, last one.
Number one's a big hit. A lot of the kids are saying that they would kindly decline and then ask either an older teammate who can legally drive or ask a coach before waiting for an adult.
Nice. Keep yourself safe, especially in cars. Please keep yourself safe. And so last thing, always, the solution of gratitude is so important. I talked about it earlier, but I know it sounds cheesy and it's like this time of year, right? But there is always something to be grateful for. And your life has meaning. Your life has value. You are important to people. It might not feel like that sometimes. And it might feel pretty easy to grab something outside yourself to solve a problem that is inside yourself. Pain, anxiety, boredom, whatever it is that you're grappling with, nothing outside of yourself, no substance, alcohol, drugs is going to solve that problem. It is just going to make it worse. And so if you can know deeply that you are valued, then maybe in that moment you are more able to say, no, I'm good, or turn it back on them, or use humor, or just leave, or don't show up to the party. Or if you do, be able to be surrounded by a community of safe friends who you trust and love. Your friendships are so important right now, so important. So here are some mental health resources for you, because substance misuse nearly always goes hand in hand with mental health issues and concerns. And so if you do need help, please reach out. We have resources available. Your life does matter. And so here are some resources for caring adults, scholars. Here is what is on the horizon for RTU. Dialogue night, event number 4. You choose one event, either January 20th or January 26th. Caring adults are required to be there with you as well. We are going to focus on the art of storytelling and radically accepting ourselves. And so in February, we're going to focus on the internal assets, what is in with you that is making you be able to make healthy decisions. And so here are some more resources for you. Refusal skill resources. The sources that I used for this presentation. That is it. Thank you for staying 2 minutes over. I appreciate your time. Thank you for those of you who chatted. We will be taking attendance. Please put in your attendance and your name if you haven't already. Your life has meaning. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this program. Have a wonderful holiday break. Take care of yourselves and stay safe. Good night. Thank you. Thank you to those who are thanking us in the chat. That is so kind. It is a value that I hold, telling people that you're grateful for them. Thank you so much. Awesome. Have a good night, everybody.